Okay, one of the essential tools that I've got for my fieldwork is my field notebook. So this is a hardcover book. It's also got waterproof paper. So this brand is a Write in the Rain. This is the geological version. This is probably kind of the best, but also the most expensive version. This is the sort of size that you aim for because it's pretty good. You can sort of put it in a pocket or put it in your jacket or put it in your bag quite easily. And it's also easy to write in. The pages have got rules in columns on one side and a grid on another side. There are some other cheaper versions that you can also use. The tradie books are quite popular because they are cheaper. The paper is also waterproof, so that's a good alternative for your fieldwork. But you must have a field book that is a hardcover and that is able to withstand the elements. The worst thing is that you have just a little paper notebook and then the paper falls apart as soon as it rains, or that you have loose sheets of paper in a clipboard and then you get a gust of wind and you watch those sheets fly away and everyone goes scrambling to get your field data. So they're definitely to be avoided. So this is one of the essential tools that you're going to need for all of your fieldwork in all of the units that you do throughout your degree. So it pays now to go and buy yourself a book, and you know that you're covered in that way. The other thing I've got here is a pen. Now it's often sort of a bit debatable as to whether you can write in a pen in your book in the rain or not. Now with this waterproof paper you can use a pen and it is quite resistant, whereas a pencil does smudge. Generally speaking, I would probably use a pencil most of the time writing my field notes because it's easy to sort of rub things out, whereas a pen can make it a little bit messy. But either way, you still need to have a pen or a pencil with your field book so that you're prepared to take notes on the field data. So your two essential tools when you're out in the field, your book and your pen. Okay, so now that I've got my book, what am I going to put in it? Well, it seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? You're going to write all your field notes. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Some people do take very few notes, and what happens is that when you're back at home or back at university, you actually then don't have any data or anything to work with. And some really obvious things that people forget to write is the location. Where are we? Or the date. What date was your field work? What day are you out there? Even the purpose of the field work. Why are you here? What sort of data are you collecting? So you need to write these really important details down for each of the sites you visit, because the more data, the more information that you write, the more you've got to work with later. Because there's nothing worse than going back home and finding, oh, I forgot to put down the location. What was the location at that site? Can anybody remember? It usually doesn't work. So you need to get into the habit of writing these essential details down in your notebook so that you always get into that practice of, yep, I'm here, date, site, location, the name. Another thing that I've also done is taken some GPS coordinates. So I've got my GPS. Everybody knows now how to read coordinates and translate those onto a map. So I've also noted down the GPS coordinates for my site. And I'm going to be noting the GPS coordinates for all of our bank exposures that we're going to be analysing so that you can plot them on your creek. Another key thing that you need to put into your notebook is a sketch map of the site. So a sketch map sort of basically helps you understand where you're located and also where your data is coming from. So in our case, we're going to be looking at a series of bank exposures, and so you need to know where those exposures are relative to each other. So it's always best to be drawing your sketch maps when you're out in the field, but before you come out in the field, it pays to be prepared and to already have a good sense of where you are. So before coming out into the site today, I've had a look on Google Earth. I've zoomed in, so I've got a sort of a fairly good mind map of what the creek looks like and also what my catchment looks like and where I am relative to key features. But when I'm out here, often things look different. So it's like, okay, I couldn't tell from Google Earth, for example, how deep the channel was. I only knew that it was an eroding channel. I've now got that additional information that I can add onto my sketch map. So what you're going to do is you're going to be creating a sketch map and you're going to be filling in some of the details based on what we're filming today. So another thing that you might do when you're out here in the field is draw a topographic cross-section. So a topographic cross-section is basically a cross-section, so a line across the topography to show you the relative features and the shapes and the heights of those features. So I might start my cross-section from up there on the hillsides, show how it goes across the floodplain. There's some little channels that are on the floodplain. Down here to our main channel. Our main channel is quite incised in places with steep vertical banks. And then across the other side, it's kind of gently undulating, and then we start to rise up on the hill slopes. So I'm going to draw a topographic cross-section. Another thing that we're going to also do is draw some stratigraphic cross-sections. And so that's where we're going to, for each of our bank exposures, we're going to be drawing the stratigraphy. So that's the horizontal layers in the bank. So all this information is what you're putting in your notebook. So you're going to be drawing those horizontal layers and taking notes of key features. You might also be writing some other specific data down in your notebook. So today what we're also going to do is analyse for some of those sediments, some key things like pH, soil colour, and I'm going to do some aggregate stability tests. And so you'll need to write that data down in your notebook. We've also got a water quality meter, so we're going to be taking some water quality measurements of things like particularly pH and EC or salinity. And so you'll also need to note that data down. So thinking about how you actually arrange this information in your notebook is really important, and also thinking about the data that you need to collect so that you don't forget to do something, because once you've gone home, it's not easy just to come back into the field to collect the data that you forgot. So thinking about this sort of stuff before you even start is a good idea. Having in mind that you get to your site, you're recording your site name, you're putting the date down, you're recording the GPS, you're providing a little bit of a description on the location, describing the site itself, drawing your sketch map of the catchment and the creek, where it sits and where all your sites are, drawing a topographic cross-section, and then drawing all your profiles for the stratigraphy and of course your data. So all these things take time. I've just listed them off in a couple of minutes, but that's what we're going to be doing, is spending the rest of the day collecting all that data. But all of it's going to be going in my field notebook.